Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Gossip Finance, where I'm your host, Alacius Inger.
And I'm Duncan Sandlin. Welcome, everybody. How are you today, Lacey?
Well, I'm excellent. We've got so much to talk about. I'm
Oh, yeah.
pretty excited.
We got a lot to go over. It's going to be a busy day. So, the first thing we wanted to cover is the Kroeger, Albertsons merger and the antitrust trial that's going on, because we covered that last week. And last week we'd sort of talked about how, it was hard to tell, but it seemed like their employees might have been a little underpaid, and their argument in court was going to be, well, us having basically a monopoly on groceries on the West Coast is a good thing because it'll raise wages and it'll raise or lower the cost of groceries. That was kind of their argument. Well, in court, it kind of came out the other way, so I just want to jump in with this. So this article already, just the title, Deleted Text, Grocery Prices, CEO Testifies in Kroger-Albertsons Merger Case. So they had a bunch of issues where they were missing text regarding what was happening with the merger. So in the highest profile testimony over Kroger's proposed $25 billion takeover of Albertsons, the CEOs of both companies defended the merger's merits and hinted at dire consequences if it was not approved. Of course they did. So Kroger CEO Rodney McMullen warned supermarkets are surrounded by non-traditional rivals selling food. Albertsons CEO Vivek Sankaran hinted his plan B could mean layoffs, store closures, and retreating from geographic markets. So basically what their argument is, because that wasn't, I mean, there's all this, okay, you're missing all these texts, and why are you missing all these things? And the judge said, well, we can't really say it was nefarious that they happened to delete all these texts during the merger. Right? Well, you can't really say that. I mean, not like they're technically required to keep them, right? So, but it still looks bad, right? The judge could still take that into consideration. But their big argument was, well, no, it'll actually make us more competitive and it'll make us lower prices and raise wages. That didn't quite kind of seem to fly.
On what planet?
Yeah, I know. That
On
didn't.
what planet?
Right. We'll get into a second why that didn't seem to fly. This is them now downshifting. They downshifted then into, well, look, here's the deal. If we can't do this, then it's going to be difficult for us to make money. We're going to have to start retreating from areas where it's hard to make money, because Amazon and Walmart are going to dominate because they have the online option better than we do. So if that's the case, that's what's going to happen. It's going to create what are called food deserts, places where there isn't a grocery store for 20 miles, which is really devastating, right? Mm-hmm. Now, this has happened a lot. This happens a lot in like really red rural areas, like Republican areas. And it's funny to me because every time it happens there, you know what they do? The county or the local city or municipality sets up their own grocery store, nonprofit grocery store. And people work there and it pays better wages and it's nonprofit, so it doesn't have to make any money. It just has to break even. So food prices tend to be cheaper. And so people love these, even though they're basically socialist grocery stores in very, very Republican areas.
Well, people might not know that that's what they are because
Yeah.
I've never heard of this, and I come from an area like that. I'm not aware of any of the grocery stores that we had there as being that type of grocery store. But
No.
I don't know if people would know.
Right.
Would you have a reason to know, the average person? I'm not sure I would. I don't go looking for the corporate structure of my grocery store before I walk in it.
No, but it would have like some weird generic name. But a lot of these they're not in places like where you would have grown up. I mean, they mostly like in Alabama, Florida, in some places like where it's really, really poor. Anyway, that's not kind of beside the point here. The point being is their whole deal was is if you don't give us to us, we'll have to create food deserts. So it's kind of a semi-threat kind of warning kind of thing, however you want to spin it. But it still came back to that whole point. Well, then it got into this. So while the Kroger CEO is testifying, he had to admit that they were price gouging, especially in milk and eggs. Because there were emails where he specifically instructed his executives to price gouge on milk and eggs. So he specifically told them to price gouge. As a top Kroger
That's horrible.
executive admits to inflating milk and egg prices above the rate of inflation, the revelations raise broader concerns about corporate price gouging, reduced competition, and the impact of consumers during the pandemic and beyond. During a Federal Trade Commission's antitrust trial this week, the senior Kroger executive made a startling admission. The grocery giant had raised prices on essential items like milk and eggs beyond what inflation alone would justify. This admission, made under questioning from an FTC attorney, of course it was, has cast a harsh light on Kroger's pricing practices and has broader implications for corporate behavior in the grocery sector, particularly as the company seeks to merge with its primary competitor, Albertsons. And what's their key argument for why we need to merge? We need to merge so we can be more profitable, but we'll also lower prices at the same time. How can we trust you to do that? Well, we're not going to price gouge like we did during COVID.
Right. You know what? I don't know how well they did in their English class, because if I was their English teacher, I would tell them that they did not pick the best evidence
No,
to support their claim.
not at all. It's terrible.
Boo. Boo.
So they're showing that it's like, okay, but part of the argument, and this is what we talked about last week, part of the argument is we need to be competitive with Walmart and Amazon. Walmart and Amazon, who are notorious for price gouging, underpaying employees, abusing their workers, right? I mean, to be competitive with them, you kind of have to be like them. So you can't sit there and say, well, we want to be like them, but we're not going to do it like them. You know, I want to be a professional basketball player like Michael Jordan, but I'm never going to shoot or dunk the ball, I promise. I mean, it's just not reasonable. But this other thing came up too, and I thought this was interesting. There were a few of these that came up, different articles and studies. Here was one from 2022, and basically Kroger workers experienced hunger, homelessness, and couldn't pay their rent in 2021. Now, part of that might have been a factor of the pandemic, but it doesn't gird the fact that its CEO made $22 million in 2021, or 2020, whatever year it was. The other thing about that is his pay since 2022 has gone up, and it's like it's gone up like 20%. It's over like 25 million now. So he's making a ton of money. So what they found was 14% of Kroger workers, out of this survey of 10,000 unionized workers they interviewed, 14% of the Kroger workers faced homelessness in that year, according to a survey. More than 3/4 of the company's workers are also food insecure, so they can't get food all the time. 3/4, 75% of their grocery store workers can't get food. Water everywhere, man. You're working at a grocery store and you can't get food. Real wages for Kroger workers have decreased in the past few years, while executive profits have increased. That's a fact. So, once again, the CEO, Roger McMullen, got a lot richer later. While most of his company workers face homelessness, eviction, and hunger, when they went through this whole thing, they found, a survey by nonprofit Economic Roundtable found that more than 1/3, 36% of 10,000 employees at Kroger-owned stores in Southern California, Colorado, and Washington, so this is relevant to this case, said they were worried about eviction. That's 36. That's 1 in 3. More than 3/4, 78% are food insecure, and 1 in 7 Kroger workers faced homelessness in the past year. And part of how that works is this: is we kind of factored we guessed their average pay was probably around $37,000 a year for a full-time employee, which is really, it's low. It's barely enough to survive. Just barely.
But a lot of those jobs are not full-time.
That's the problem. And the other problem is because it's a grocery store and they want to, there's different seasons. People shop at different times in different parts of the year. So they want people to have flexible part-time schedules. So you could be working different shifts at different times, which makes it almost impossible to get a second job. Because you don't have a regular shift. So
Right.
It really screws these people. And since they don't want to pay or hire full-time employees, because then you have to give them full benefits, which costs even more money to the company. So the company just wants to rotate these part-time people and they don't care that much about turnover because they're saving so much in the interim that it doesn't really matter to them. So this idea that we're going to raise wages and lower prices is undercut by the fact that you've been lowering wages for the last several years, and you've been raising prices and price gouging whenever you get the opportunity.
And somehow, magically, they're just supposed to be believed when they say, oh, but we'll lower prices.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll lower it. Well, you can trust us. Well, I mean, now, you couldn't trust us before, but now you can. Maybe I was lying to you before, but now I'm telling the truth. So,
Is that what Trump tells, the people in his life?
I'm sure that's what he tells them. I'm sure he says, no, I was never lying. That was all in your imagination. He gaslights him. But no, so that's
right.
That's what's going on. This will be interesting. We'll let you know how it pans out. I think there's another week or two left in that trial. But it's basically a test trial. This is not the full trial. This is just to get an injunction to stop the merger for now until they can take it to court in D.C. But it's sort of a test run of, is our antitrust laws really going to kick in, or are we going to let these companies basically become monopolies? So we'll see how it plays out. I don't see how if Kroeger wins, this is a good thing for the consumers or the employees. I mean, there's really nothing to support that. So.
Well, aren't you guys still boycotting Fred Meyer over there, which is one of the Kroger grocery stores? I think a lot of the West Coast is still boycotting them, even though the strike is technically done, right?
Yeah, the strike is technically over, but yeah, there's still a boycott going on. I don't know how big it is because they're one of the largest chains on the West Coast. So, there's not a lot of other places you can go anyway. Unless you live in you live in a nice area like I do, where it's like, okay, I'll just go to Safeway.
Right.
Right. But I do think Safeway is a sister company there, so it's not like you're really going anywhere that they don't have their finger in. They aren't like mom and pop grocery stores anymore. So.
Well, I gotta tell you, I hope Trader Joe's sees a surge from it and everyone's like, to heck with all of these guys, and goes over there.
I like the farmer's market. I can get it right from the farm. I don't need to forget the middleman.
There you go.
Get better first pick. It's cheaper. But anyway, we'll keep you up to date as that moves forward. But moving on to the news. So we have to start with the debate. So the presidential debate, the second presidential debate with the new candidate, right, Kamala Harris. So presidential debate 2024 part 2, now with 50% less old white guy. And
But you know what? All that did is it served to highlight who the old white guy is.
Was.
Who's the old white guy in the room?
Well,
not who's the oldest, whitest guy in the room. That's no longer the question the American people are asking.
Well, yeah, Trump will still be the oldest. Anyway, so the debate happened. Basically, Kamala did a great job. Trump struggled a bit, but Fox News was really upset, and they were trying to spin it as the ABC was being unfair. CNN basically said, "Oh no, she did a great job. She won." So I just want to get this is a clip from MSNBC. They were basically over the moon because of this. So we're gonna watch them celebrate for a second.
Okay, Michael Steele, you were quite animated when I saw you in the hallway earlier about that debate.
Trying to be
I'm going to see what you're going to tell me. You think of the debate that you told me in the hallway. What was your take on the debate, Michael Steele? Go ahead. What was the key moment?
She spanked that ass. I'm sorry. That's what she did. She came and she walked on that stage. Look, for me, this it's one of those things that you didn't realize happened until about 20 to 30 minutes into the debate. And it's what everyone's talked about. And for me, it was the pivotal, most important moment of the debate was when they were introduced. And Donald Trump came out, and if you watch, go back, I tell everybody to go back and watch this. He comes out, he goes direct to the podium. He is not, usually you go to the middle of the floor to greet your opponent. He went to the opponent. He had no intention of shaking her hand. She walked across the stage right into his space, stuck her hand out, and said, Kamala Harris. First off, I'm saying my name so you get it right when you say it, which he never said once during the entire debate. Two, he never looked at her during the entire debate.
And that is, both of those statements are true. It was really sad. She had to walk over to him to get him to shake her hand. And she introduced herself to him. Now, why did she do that? Two reasons. One, because they mispronounce her name all the time on purpose, to try, because they think it's funny. I don't know. So here's my name, but she introduced herself. The reason she did that is this is the first time they've met. They've never been in the room together. Now that seems odd, right? He was the incumbent. She was her Biden took over, right? You'd think she'd have met him. Oh, that's right. He refused to say he lost the election and invite them to the White House, like every other president before him.
I'm going to add that there's another reason for her to say her name from a female's perspective. That's a power move.
Yeah.
Because women, show me in your hate comments below. Women in this country are cultured, and in plenty of other countries too, but I can speak for where I grew up, very much cultured to be apologetic for ourselves, to play small, to be smaller than the men we're around. Her walking into his territory and saying her name, that's a power move. Not only the walking into his territory, but this is who I am, and I'm coming for you. That is exactly what she said with that move.
Absolutely. And it's a power move he gave her, because all he had to do to avoid that was just be cordial, walk to the center of the stage, shake her hand, introduce himself too. If he'd have just treated...
Furthermore, she made him look like a schmuck right out of the gate. He looks like a schmuck. Well, he made himself look like a schmuck because he didn't do the standard thing. But
right. If he'd have treated her like an equal, he wouldn't have looked like a lesser.
Right.
And so he did that, and then through the whole thing, he never looked at her. Never looked at her. He squinted, he looked down, he looked hunched the whole time. Kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And
it was like, oh, he looked like an angry little troll for most of the debate. It was insane.
And I don't know if this was intentional or not, maybe it was, but what she did, what I thought was really sharp, was the whole debate, every time she looked at him, it was either to laugh at him, because he was saying something crazy, or she looked at him like confused, because he was saying something crazy, or she looked at him like she was pitying him because he couldn't get the words out.
Because he was saying something crazy?
No, because he couldn't even say it. There were times where it was just gibber, and it didn't make any sense. Then he was chewing on the words like he didn't know what to say. So it was kind of, it was bad for him. It was really embarrassing. So watch a couple highlights. Jen Psaki's going to go over from here. But I just wanted to show that clip of Michael Steele because he was all excited.
Hi from New York. I'm Jen Psaki. Thank you for sticking with us for another hour of special coverage following the first and so far only presidential debate. We'll see if there's another one. I'm a little skeptical. Between, of course, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Over the course of 90 minutes, one candidate, Kamala Harris, absolutely owned the other guy on the stage. She talked about issues that people actually care about, like the economy, abortion rights, and democracy itself. Well, the other guy, Donald Trump, seemed unprepared, quite grumpy, and often incoherent. At times, the vice president could do nothing but laugh or stare aghast at the ranting and raving from the other side of the stage. The kind of rambling free association that many Americans have not heard since Donald Trump left office nearly 4 years ago. What's more, the ex-president proved once again that he is the impulse control of a toddler. Over and over again, Harris laid rhetorical traps for the former president. And over again, Trump took the bait.
I'll tell you something. He's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people.
So, I wanted to get it. So she's right. So she did a couple things right out of the gate that were great. She laid out her economic policy in the first like few minutes. This is what my policy plan is. And then she stuck to it through the rest of this is what my plan is. I have a plan. When they finally needled Donald Trump to, well, what's your plan? He literally said this. I have a concept of a plan.
Oh, I remember that. He's like, well, you know, I have a concept. There are plans that we could have.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
You're like,
Is that concept called
Well-
Project 2025? Oh, I don't know anything about that. So basically, you're going to do whatever they tell you. So Project 2025 is what you're saying. So she did that. She also, so she caught him right out of the gate with that. She caught him right out of the gate with, look, he's going to lie and say crazy stuff. And he did. So she just said, look, I told you he was going to lie. I don't know what else what do you want to hear. She kept saying that throughout the debate. And the other thing was the immigration deal was she's like, he's going to talk a lot about immigration even when it's not the topic. Because that's all he talks about. Because that's the only thing he has is xenophobia. Brown people are coming for you. That's it. That's his all he's running on. And that's what he talked about. So the whole thing about them eating the dogs and cats and pets thing. Apparently there was some story.
yeah, racist bullshit. That's what it is.
It's not even that. It's even stupider. There was something about like Venezuelan gangs, and it turned out it wasn't Venezuelan gangs. It were all right-wing guys pretending to try and cause problems. And then there was, but that got spread through right-wing media. And then there was one where it was some immigrant ate some guy's pet. Was one of the things. And they were talking, and then that got to, well, the immigrants are coming over and stealing and eating people's pets. And it wasn't. The story, because the police even had to mention that there have been no reports of people's pets being stolen and eaten. No reports. I mean, they had to pull cops off their duties to make sure there were no reports so they could make that statement to the press. I mean, it's such a waste. And what it was I think it was something like it was a guy who was a black guy who was homeless, who I guess killed and ate a duck. And he got in trouble for that. But it was a wild duck. It's like, and I mean.
So he wasn't like jumping into someone's yard to take their cat to go and barbecue it or something crazy,
No,
right?
and he wasn't even an immigrant. It was just a black guy.
Wow. So talk about screwing that story up as much as you possibly could. It's not anybody's pets. It has nothing to do with immigration. It might be about a homeless person, so maybe it becomes a homelessness issue, but it has nothing to do with what he's talking about.
Right, and he killed and ate a duck. People do that all the time. Duck is pretty common. I've eaten duck. But yeah, so that was one. I mean, just crazy shit. But we'll watch some more of these little clips real quick because it's just crazy to me. But I like how she just
People
laughs.
that live there.
What you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
Let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that.
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in
No, I
2020?
don't acknowledge that at all.
And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States. And world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump.
Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person.
So I gotta break some of this down just because it's. So that was one of the big needling things because he's so sensitive about the crowd size and how many people like him or don't like him. So she needled him on that all night, and he just got. And it's like his staff is like, please don't respond, just. But he can't help himself, right? So the crowd says, yeah, his crowds are leaving in the middle of his crowds, in the middle of his speeches. They were leaving like a half hour into his. We've covered it. We've showed footage of it.
Right.
On this show, they're leaving. It's boring. It's the same shtick, and he doesn't make any sense. And he got all upset about that. Had to defend it. No, nobody goes to her rallies. Well, that's not true. Her rallies have been pretty fucking packed. In fact, there are more people at her rallies than yours.
That's also not a sensitive spot for her. Like,
No, like she cares.
her level of. I mean, it's not true, but
Yeah.
even if it were true, it's not an ego point for her. For him, there's so much You know, he didn't have a good relationship with his father, and
Yeah.
clearly has not worked that out in therapy.
Yeah.
But he can't handle the idea that he's not popular and not in charge and not loved and revered and whatever. Like, he's got to have this, you know, certain image of himself. So that is a sensitive spot for him. Him throwing that back at her, she's like,
Yeah, she didn't
All
say
right.
anything. Because there's nothing to say. There's nothing worth saying. The other thing about you got fired by 81 million people. Yeah, he lost. 81 million people voted against you. 73 million people voted for you, which shows you something dark about this country. But 81 million, the majority, voted against you. And, well, and he couldn't even acknowledge that. No, I won. But then, of course, he admitted later he lost in the debate. Right? So it's like he's just all over the place. And then she talked about world leaders are laughing at him. It's true. That's been reported heavily that world leaders think he's a joke. But what does he do? Oh no, Viktor Orban. I'm sorry. You pick the one weird ass dictator who likes you?
well, and
He's not even an ally.
Let's not forget throughout the debate, he started talking about how he was buddies with Putin.
Yeah.
Like this is a selling point.
Right.
He's like, I mean, well, like, how often do you talk to Putin?
Yeah. Putin's my best friend. He gave me a soccer ball once.
Like, all over the debate, like, multiple times being like, well, how often do you talk to Putin? Well, listen, when I talk to him, you know, he listens to me because we're besties, you know, we're like this, you know. So you think the American people are super excited about you, like, hanging out with and talking to him?
Well, the smart thing she did about that was she talked about this because Putin is not just interested in Ukraine. He wants Europe. All of Europe. I mean, that's always been the Russian oligarch dream, right? And he's got his nutbags with him to tell him, no, Ukraine is the first step. He'll take Poland next, which is their neighbor. Right? And of course, she pointed that out. And if you know anybody who's Polish or from Poland, the Polish people are worried about that. Because if he takes Ukraine, then Russia is right on there next door.
Yeah.
And they are not buddies with the Russians. So the Polish people are worried about that. Well, it's interesting because Pennsylvania is a state they're both tied in. It's a big swing state. And pretty much whoever wins Pennsylvania is pretty much got this thing locked up or close to. Well, Pennsylvania's got, a couple 100,000 Polish immigrants or children of Polish immigrants living there that know people in Poland. How thrilled do you think they are about, well, yeah, that's a good point. If we elect Trump, our cousins in Poland might be getting invaded by Russia. So she kind of nailed them on that.
Tell you, as somebody that legitimately has family that live in Europe, now this is not the country we're worried about, but I've got family in Norway and Sweden.
Yeah.
And if suddenly it was like, oh, snap, we're letting them take over Finland.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, my eyeballs get big and then I go, oh, they're right there next to my family. I've got my cousins hanging out there, you know.
Well,
Your ears perk, and
Yeah.
we have plenty of America in that boat.
yeah. Well, we're funneling a lot of weapons to them through Poland. So Poland's actually been a pretty good ally in this. But that just kind of nailed it. But I just wanted to cover those couple things because it was just so stupid. We'll watch the rest of this real quick and then wrap it up. But
is Donald Trump.
yeah.
So you saw a bunch of it there. We'll play more throughout the course of the next hour, but basically,
So that was pretty much it. But yeah, I mean, that just gives you a sense of kind of what the debate was. She needled him. He got defensive and angry. He spent the whole night on the back foot trying to defend all the stupid things he's done.
And he took the damn bait every time. Every time he took the debate or took the bait. I mean, we need a president who's smart enough to know when somebody's baiting him.
Right. Well, and furthermore, when it was her turn, what would she do? She'd tell you, this is what I'm going to do for you, the American people. And she made that clear at the beginning. He's never going to talk. He doesn't talk about the people. He doesn't talk about anybody. He's only going to talk about himself. I'm going to talk about you. And then what happened? She baited him. He talked about himself, and then she would bring it back to, well, let me talk about what I'm going to do for you. And then she baited him again. I mean, it was... She basically dog walked him all fucking night. It was hilarious.
Right.
I mean, she kind of owned it. So, anyway, we'll see what that does to the polls. Debate doesn't necessarily dictate an election. You know, ask Hillary Clinton. But it does make a difference because there are a lot of undecided voters who didn't know much about her. So she got a chance to step up and show herself a side-by-side comparison. Look at what you're buying.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I have to say, she looked very competent. So she showed up and she was very competent
and
stuck to her guns. So
yeah, and she wasn't defensive or hunched over or too afraid to look at her opponent. And she doesn't look old and decrepit and she's not babbling and slurring, which he did some of the night. So it's like, you know. But yeah, anyway, so she owned that. His stock was down like 13% today, the day after. So it just goes to show you how bad he did. So investors are not feeling it right now. So that was the debate in a nutshell kind of thing. But after the debate, while they were still doing it, Taylor Swift came out and endorsed Kamala Harris.
Oh, well, of course, the Republicans are freaking out. They're already certain that she's been bought and paid for by the Democratic Party because clearly that's what they're putting all their time, energy, and money into is buying Taylor Swift.
Well, and you got to remember, it was a few weeks ago, Donald Trump thanked Taylor Swift for her endorsement because he got some fake AI image of her endorsing Trump. So he thought she endorsed him, and he thanked her for it, and then she had to correct that no, I didn't endorse you. So she did her whole deal, and I just want to watch some of the freak out from the right wing. So here's Megyn Kelly. We'll start with, and then we'll jump to Fox. But here's Megyn Kelly on her show, The Megyn Kelly Show. I think its original title was Justifying Low Ratings with Megyn Kelly.
Because I guess she decided, oh, this will be fun to crap on him when he's down, when she perceives him as down. Taylor Swift just endorsed Kamala Harris. Taylor Swift, yeah. She posts a picture of herself with her cat. Would you look at this? You can.
Furthermore, I want to add to this. She signed it Taylor Swift, childless cat lady, to dig at Vance about his thing.
Oh. Of course.
I'm like, you can kiss your sales to the Republican audience goodbye, Taylor. Hope you enjoyed them while you had them. Can I tell you?
I want to get to that real quick. So, Taylor Swift back, what was it, 2018 or whatnot, released a video thing where she was arguing with her parents and her agent about she wanted to go against Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee because Marsha Blackburn was against women's rights for abortion and things like that. And so Taylor Swift wanted to publicly go out against her, and they all yelled at her and said, no, don't, you're going to lose most of your audience. And she said, well, I'm doing it anyway. And she did it, and she didn't lose her audience. In fact, her audience got a lot bigger. And since then, she's become a billionaire, and her Eras tour that just was recently, was last year, the year before. Anyway, the year it came out, it was like 0.1% of the United States GDP. Her one freaking tour was big enough to be on the board as a big chunk of the GDP. The gross domestic product for the whole country. That just amazes me. You gotta remember, Disney's in this country.
That's a weird moment.
Yeah.
In her career. It's a really weird moment.
But you notice that happened after she endorsed against Marsha Blackburn. I can't remember who she endorsed. And then she endorsed Biden in 2020. And she's not like her sales are going down. So, I don't think she's real worried about losing fans. I think you should be worried about how many young Republican women are sitting there going, maybe we're on the wrong side here.
I honestly think some young Republican women are going to do one of two things, because I am from originally one of those types of states.
Yep.
And I could see them doing one of two things, saying, oh, I don't care about her politics, and just not caring either way, but not stopping being one of her fans.
No.
Or she thinks this, I wonder why she thinks this. And starting to like kind of dig into it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying whether that will or will not change minds, but either they're not going to care or they might start digging into it. But I don't know that I see it being something that makes any of the young women walk away honestly.
I don't think she's losing fans over this. If she does, it'll be negligible.
Right.
On top of that, I mean, it's just one of those things where, I mean, I can see, I mean, this is going to have a big impact because a lot of, it's not the Republican women so much, it's a lot of women in their 20s who weren't going to vote anyway, but are Taylor Swift fans, and now she's going to make it a trend that you need to go out and vote. That's going to make a bigger difference. That's what they're worried about here. So we'll watch the rest of this. This is just hilarious to me with Megyn Kelly.
Add them. Can I tell you something? I criticized her about 6 months ago when she came out strongly in favor of, she went to a fundraiser to raise money for Hamas, supposedly Palestinians, but the group that was doing the fundraising was known to funnel the money to Hamas. And I said, people should boycott her. It was an offhanded comment. People went nuts. Some lunatic dropped a note in my personal mailbox outside my house begging me not to boycott Taylor Swift, as though I have that power. I'm allowed to criticize Taylor Swift, and I don't give a shit who gets upset. This is disgusting. If she wants to vote Harris Walz, she can do it all she wants. But to say the reason she's doing it is because of Tim Walz's stance on LGBTQ, F you, Taylor Swift.
Whoa. That sounds crazy, because so she just criticized Taylor Swift for having a reason. Wait, she just criticized Taylor Swift for the fact that there is a particular issue.
LGBTQ.
Let's even pretend for a second we don't care what it is. That there's an issue she cares about enough for it to sway her vote. Hi, any informed voter has at least one, if not more than one issue they care deeply about that could be one of the key issues that would sway their vote. Because I can think of a few issues in my world that would sway my vote depending on what somebody said.
Yeah.
So that's seriously one of the stupidest things I have ever heard to criticize somebody for. Wait a minute, you mean it's because the candidate is going to do this thing that you care about?
Right. No, she's just upset, but it's like, so, I don't know if Megyn Kelly just doesn't like LGBTQ people or what, that's the thing that she goes F you about, but she's really upset, and and this was sort of my... Sorry, Megyn, it's just, cry all you want. It was inevitable. She voted for Biden. I mean, she was really clear about that. Here, I want to just show you the clip here where I got it right here. Rachel Maddow reads this to Tim Walz right after the debate. This is crazy. So Tim Walz was on MSNBC. They were interviewing him after the debate. That's when the Taylor Swift thing dropped. So Tim Walz is finding out about this in real time from Rachel Maddow.
In totality. I'm going to read you the whole thing because this was, I don't think you know about this, but this was just posted online by a woman you might have heard of whose name is Taylor Swift. And she has posted this online along with a photo of her cat. And I'm going to read to you what she just posted. Quote, like many of you, I watched the debate tonight. If you haven't already, now is a great time to do your research on the issues at hand and the stances these candidates take on the topics that matter to you the most. As a voter, I make sure to watch and read everything I can about their proposed policies and plans for this country. Recently, I was made aware that AI of me, quote me, falsely endorsing Donald Trump's presidential run was posted to his site. It really conjured up my fears around AI and the dangers of spreading misinformation. It brought me to the conclusion that I need to be very transparent about my actual plans for this election as a voter. The simplest way to combat misinformation is with the truth. And then she says, quote, I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 presidential election. I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she is a steady-handed, gifted leader, and I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we're led by calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of running mate Tim Walz, who has been standing up for LGBTQ plus rights, IVF, and a woman's right to her own body for decades. I've done my research and I've made my choice. Your research is all yours to do, and the choice is yours to make. I also want to say, especially to first-time voters, remember that in order to vote, you have to be registered. I also find it's much easier to vote early. I will link where to register and find early voting dates and info in my story. With love and hope, Taylor Swift, signed Childless Cat Lady.
Yeah, that's a good day for Tim Walz. That's a good day. I can't hear you at all.
Sorry, but she was smart enough to say, hey, vote early and register.
Right.
So you got to vote early, you got to register. That she's talking to her audience, especially her younger audience.
Right.
That's what they're scared of, and they should be.
You know, but in there, she's being transparent about what she's going to do, but she even says in there, you do your research, you make your own choice. She's not telling them to vote for anybody.
Right.
She's telling them to vote. She's telling them to do their homework. She's telling them what issues she cares about.
Absolutely. So, I mean, she didn't do anything untoward or interesting there. I mean, but it is devastating for them. Because they're not going to get that young vote as much as they want. They're not going to get the celebrity vote or the cool people. It's just not happening. And I'm sorry to say it, she kind of nails it down in that. It's like, look, you're against women's rights. You're against gay rights. You're against people having rights. What made you think the cool kids were going to like you? That's just the opposite of cool, guys.
Nope.
But here's Donald Trump on Fox and Friends having a little therapy session this morning about Taylor Swift endorsing Kamala Harris.
Harris, what do you think?
Well, I actually like Mrs. I actually like Mrs. Mahomes much better, if you want to know the truth. She's a big Trump fan. I was not a Taylor Swift fan. It was just a question of time. She couldn't. You couldn't possibly endorse Biden. You look at Biden, you couldn't possibly endorse him. But she's a very liberal person. She seems to always endorse a Democrat, and she'll probably pay a price for it at in the marketplace. But no, I like.
So again, he's.
So this is the guy from Pondering Politics who clipped it, but he's just upset, and all they got is, well, my followers aren't going to listen to you anymore. Poo-poo, huh? Deal with that.
Okay.
Oh man! Oh, now it won't stop. There we go. They got nothing, man. So there it was. There it was again. Jesus. So Taylor Swift finally got him. So
you couldn't get your sound effect to stop, and they couldn't get their big baby to stop either.
I know. But he had to call Fox and Friends and do an impromptu therapy session. They should really just, whenever he calls, they should just call it Grandpa's on the phone. Racist Grandpa's on the phone. I don't like Taylor Swift. Really? Because you were all for her a week or two ago when you thought she endorsed you. No, you don't like her.
I never really liked her.
No. Screw her. Well,
Newsflash, I don't think he's the audience she's going for anyway.
no. Well, he would ideally like to, but yeah, no. But yeah, we'll move on from that. But yeah, so they got Kamala killed it. They got Taylor Swift's endorsement. It's been a good 24 hours for Kamala Harris. So Trump had a couple things happen. I guess good or bad, depending on how you want to look at it for him. Before this, one, his sentencing in his 34-count felony fraud case, where they did business fraud, that got delayed till after the election. And part of what happened there was the judge, Merchan, basically was looking for the DA to make a request, and the DA said basically, we'll defer to the court. You do whatever you want to do, right? And there was a lot of pressure because it's like, well, if I sentence him now, it looks like I might be interfering with the election. I don't want to do that. But at the same time, you're the court. It shouldn't matter. And so he kind of took the way out where he said, look, I'll just sentence him after the election. We'll postpone it because the DA is not objecting. But he even said, I think it's bogus that we're doing this. Kind of. But it's like, kind of like, yeah, you're saying that, but you're doing it. So it's kind of a mix or match. But it does lead to a couple things that you can probably assume about why he delayed it. And I wanted to get into that. So this is MSNBC, and they had a couple lawyers on with Alex Wagner to talk about what the delay might mean for Trump in the sentencing.
Joining me now are Duncan Levin, former prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's office, and Christy Greenberg, former federal prosecutor and an MSNBC legal analyst. Duncan, can you take me inside the sort of mind of Judge Merchan to the degree that you are able to professionally and sort of explain to those of us who don't understand the back and forth what a sentencing hearing is?
Sure.
And why Judge Merchan thinks that those proceedings could inadvertently intersect with the political proceedings of a November election?
Well, so a sentencing proceeding basically is the opportunity for the prosecution to make basically oral arguments, for the defense also, and for the defendant to get to talk, because throughout this whole trial, he had the right to testify, but he didn't. This is his moment to talk, and he gets to make a statement to the court and express remorse or not. And I don't think he will, but he's allowed to talk to the court.
Something tells you?
Something tells me. And so he's allowed to talk. And then the judge is going to pronounce sentence orally, and it's being done very formally in this case. Sometimes in state court, it's not. But there are a lot of swirling things here going on for Judge Merchan. And I think that a lot of people have been saying this is a huge win for Trump, but I think it's anything but. It looks like the noose is tightening in a way, because if he loses the election, this makes it far more likely that he's going to get some kind of sentence with confinement on it. And I know I've been talking to you for the whole summer, sort of off stage, about the fact that I think that that's going to happen. But I think this makes it much more likely, because Judge Merchan's in a very difficult position to put him even in house arrest during the final stages of the election. Once the election's over, if he loses, if he wins the election, all bets are off.
Right.
If he loses the election, I think it makes it much more likely to do that. But there are also other.
Sorry. I don't. Oh, you're muted too. Sorry. I don't think Merchan. I think the analysis was good. I think Merchan, kind of a twofer here. One, I think he wants to sentence him to time in prison. We've looked at this before, and people doing equal stuff have gotten a year to 2 years. I think he's afraid to do it now before the election. However, here's the deal. If Trump wins the election, he could sentence him and it won't necessarily matter, because it'll be a Supreme Court issue. Right? And we already know which way they'll probably go. But if he loses the election, then he's in real trouble. So now it all hinges on Trump winning the election, which incentivizes Trump now to cheat and do whatever he can. And they're already trying to do stuff to cheat and get fake electors into different states. And this has been an ongoing problem that DOJ has been dealing with. So there's that issue where it's like, okay, so you're kind of dumping the sentencing onto the American public. So that's not really justice. That's... Go ahead.
It's sort of like we became sideways the jury, you know?
Well, I mean, he's already been convicted. So it's one of those things where it's like, why are you dumping this on the outcome of the election? And he's sort of passing it down to the DA. And I get he's under a lot of pressure and he's getting death threats and all that stuff. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, kind of not justice to me. It shouldn't matter that he's running for office. He's a convicted felon. He needs to be sentenced.
I mean, quite frankly, it's crazy that a convicted felon can run for office. I mean, if you're a convicted felon, can you even go and vote for yourself?
Nah, not in every state. I think in Florida, he's typically in Florida you can't, but I think they gave Trump an exception for some reason, but so he can still vote. But anyway, I just think I don't know. I think it's kind of chicken shit. I mean, I can see where he's sitting there going, yeah, if Trump loses, then yeah, I'm sure Merchan's going to give him a year, 2 years, whatever it is. I wouldn't doubt it. And Trump's going to spend the rest of his life. If he loses the election, he's going to spend the rest of his life going between a jail cell and a courtroom. That's just a fact, and he knows it. That's why he's so scared. But the fact of the matter is that would be justice. He's already been convicted. Yeah. And I think the way Chutkan handled this in her situation where she's doing the review now for the immunity stuff, right? But she's put a fast track on that. And Trump's lawyers were trying to tell her, well, it's too fast. And she's like, look, we've been sitting on this a year waiting on the Supreme Court. How is this too fast and how are you not prepared? And they were like, well, the election thing. She's like, don't talk to me about election. The election's his day job. I don't care. It's not going to interfere with my court schedule. And honestly, Lazy, you, me, anybody else, anybody watching this, you got convicted of 34 felony counts. You can't go to the judge and say, well, but Your Honor, I got to work. No, you don't, because you're going to prison. Oh.
We'll find a special kind of work for you there.
I mean, anybody else, you'd already be sentenced by now. So right. I think it's a little bit of a chicken shit move. I think the American people need to know before we vote. What kind of trouble is this guy really in? So, just what it is. But it looks like he's not going to get sentenced before the election on anything.
I'm not surprised even a little.
I know. I can't. I mean, it's just depressing. It's not surprising, but it is depressing that that's what it came down to. So that was that case. We'll move on to the next Trump case. He's got so many of these. He had an appeal hearing E. Jean Carroll sued him for defamation. He basically raped her. The jury found that he raped her. She sued him for defamation. She won the first one. It was like $5 million. Won the second one. She got like $83 million. He's trying to get the first one, the $5 million one, overturned, or he tried to and it got shut down. I can't remember which one this is. So he's at the appeals court trying to appeal it. It's not going well. The appeals court's not going to go for it. So he goes out and he does a little press conference with his attorneys behind him, Alina Habba and the other guy, who lost this case. And he's kind of bitching about them, but he also does something weird. And I got this clip. I pulled this. David Packwood pulled this one up. I just wanted to pull it from him. But I'm going to have him introduce it, but it's just bizarre.
Look on in horror. They just look on in horror. Donald Trump potentially opening himself up to further defamation claims against him. It's almost beyond words what Donald Trump did. And if you're watching, keep an eye on the lawyers as he delivers this bizarre speech.
Now, there were two witnesses. One is a woman who's followed me for years. She said in 1979, I was in an airplane with her, commercial flight, and we became very intimate. I just sat down. I think I had the book, The Art of the Deal. I was famous then, too. I've been famous for a long time. And we're sitting in first class, according to her. Never happened, by the way. Totally made up story. She's a Clinton person, too, by the way. Big Clinton person. She made
At this point, his lawyers are panicking.
up the story. And so many years ago, and I think it would be 1979. One of my many people behind me could correct it, but I think she said 1979. That's a long time ago. And I sat down. I believe I had some pretty big success then, and I was being talked about a lot. Maybe The Art of the Deal was out, sometime after that. I'm not sure. But I was well known. And passengers are coming into the plane. And she said I was making out with her. And then, after 15 minutes, and then she changed her story a couple of times, maybe it was quicker, that I grabbed her at a certain part, and that was when she had enough.
Now, by the way,
Okay, so he grabbed her by the, what's the term I'm looking for? It's almost like he's famous for saying it. I can't remember.
And here it comes again.
So he did. So he grabbed her. That's what he did. So when he said that, it's true. He does it. This case was actually 1980. We covered this. I mean, there's a whole Wikipedia page about all his sexual assaults. I mean, but the fact that here he is in the appeal for a case that he lost for defaming a woman he raped, and he's talking about another woman he sexually assaulted in like 1980. He's screwing it up. It's not in 79, it's 80. And he's saying, well, but I was famous at the time, and she made it up to, like, attack me kind of thing. Well, I looked it up. Art of the Deal didn't come out till 1987. So it wasn't that famous in 1980. Not a lot of people knew who he was outside of New York. And the woman probably didn't know because she got bumped to first class from Coach. And I bet at first she thought she was lucky, and then when she got there, realized she didn't get so lucky.
Wow.
So
his lawyers looking at each other, giving that. You see them, the looks they've been giving each other.
Like, oh God, what the fuck? So he went.
Like they're trying to put neutral faces, but their eyeballs just keep shooting to each other.
Yeah. So at his appeal for losing the defamation case where he said he didn't rape the woman he raped and she called her a liar and all this stuff, he's talking about a different case from years before. I mean, 44 years ago. He talked about another one too, and so he was just basically, let's just do a recap of all the women I've sexually assaulted over the years. He didn't do that. Fortunately, they'd have been there all day. But
well, why would you come out there and be like, okay, so at my press junket, because I want to clear this up with you, let me tell you her entire story about how I sexually assaulted her.
Yeah. Well, why are you giving these details and putting them in our minds?
Right. Why would you want to sit there when you're running for office and literally plant that all into the minds of the American people?
Right. Why are you doing the prosecution's job for you in front of the press? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, honestly, I think he's just got dementia. I don't think he knows what's going on anymore. I mean, he didn't know when he was probably sane, but now he's out there. But he did that, talked about how shitty his lawyers were, right in front of them while they were standing behind him. Because he's got to humiliate everybody. That's his whole shtick. Everybody who likes him is going to get embarrassed by him or put down by him. That's just how he rolls. And then he defamed and called E. Jean Carroll a liar again. Which brings us to this article. Oh, wait, not that one. Hang on. This one right here. This just cracks me up. E. Jean Carroll lawyer says all options on the table after Trump attacks her again in rambling remarks. Trump, flanked by his lawyers, said he's disappointed with his legal team as he detailed sexual assault allegations against him. I mean, he's giving you the details. Oh, man. He attended a brief oral argument in a federal appeals court hearing in Manhattan on Friday morning, where attorneys argued to reverse a $5 million defamation verdict against the former president, who a jury found liable for sexually abusing the writer E. Jean Carroll in a department store in the 90s. I mean, and he's still continuing with the lie. So he's calling her a liar and defaming her again. For a third time. He's lost $5 million the first one, $83 million the second one. The third one, what are you going to say to the jury? Guys, sky's the limit. He's never going to learn. Jury's going to be like $2 billion? I don't know. $3 billion?
And if I were E. Jean Carroll, I would just tell my lawyers, keep going for it. Every time he opens his mouth, just hit him.
Just hit him one more time. I did want to cover this because this is so messed up. So, moving on here, so here we are. We're talking about the Donald Trump 34-count felon awaiting sentencing. Adjudicated rapist. Just got tagged. Now he owes over $500 million to the state of New York for fraud, business fraud, over the years, or when he was president. But guess what? He did get a key endorsement this week. That's right. The police union endorsed Donald Trump. Trump accepts key endorsement from police union while celebrating sentencing delay on felony charges. Charlotte, North Carolina. Donald Trump accepted a key endorsement from one of the nation's most influential law enforcement lobbies on Friday by offering a sweeping indictment of the U.S. legal system that has convicted him of almost 36 felony counts and indicted him on 3 other pending cases. The Fraternal Order of Police convention in the battleground state of North Carolina was billed as a way for Trump to pitch himself as a law and order figure and cast his Democratic opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris, a former prosecutor and California Attorney General, as weak. But in between remarks about crime and law enforcement, the former president and Republican nominee celebrated a New York judge's decision earlier in the day to postpone his sentencing on 34 counts of business fraud. He repeated his false assertion the U.S. election system is rife with mass voter fraud and that his 2020 defeat was rigged, arguments rejected as of the state, and da-da-da-da-da. So the police union here, lobby, endorses Trump. And in his acceptance speech, talks about how his sentencing got delayed on his 34 felony counts to a bunch of cops. Bitches about how unfair the business trial was against him, where he got tagged for hundreds of millions of dollars. It was like $500 million now he owes the state of New York. Said there's voter fraud and problems, and lambasted the former Attorney General of California and criminal prosecutor Kamala Harris. So the cops literally chose the criminal over the freaking prosecutor.
Wow.
I don't know, guys. I mean,
I don't even know what to say to that because it just sounds crazy to me.
And people ask, Duncan, why aren't you a cop anymore? Well, lots of reasons, but that doesn't help. I don't really have anything else to say other than what else can you say about that? That's just so fucked up. So, anyway, I guess moving on from that, I got one more story I got to cover on the news, and then we'll jump into some fun clip stuff. But So, as we're coming up to the election, right? Congress is going through their things. Right now, the Republicans are doing a lot to try and restrict voting rights and restrict the number of new voters are out. Because right now, record numbers of people are signing up to vote. More than when Biden won in 2020. And in fact, registration for female voters, I think, is up like 200%. For black women, it's up almost triple. Which is not good in an election where abortion's on the ballot and you're running the guy who got rid of abortion. Right? So, all that's going on. So they're trying, what can we do? What can we do? Well, the budget's coming up, right? The debt ceiling. So Mike Johnson, with pressure from Trump and the Republican Party, comes up with a brilliant plan. Mike Johnson forced to risk shutdown over Trump's election fraud delusions. So Donald Trump insisted on attaching a voter identification law onto a House funding bill, is putting Speaker Mike Johnson and Republican Party election chances into a risky position. The Louisiana Republican finds himself under pressure from the GOP's right-wing flank and the former president to risk a government shutdown weeks before the election to get this Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, the SAVE Act, signed into law, which will require individuals registering to vote to present documentary proof of citizenship that would not actually solve the supposed problem. So, now if you want to register to vote, you have to prove citizenship, which means you got to have a passport or a social security card or something like that. And a driver's license won't prove citizenship.
Right.
And not everybody has that. And especially, you know who has a hard time getting that? Young voters. You haven't been around long enough to need that to go get it. I think I was 20.
That takes a while.
Yeah. I mean, I have my birth certificate, social security card, and all that, but I didn't have those physically in my possession until I was like 29, 28. Because I didn't need it until then.
Right.
So this is all to try and discourage people from voting. Well, of course, the Democrats aren't going to go for this. Oh yeah, let's put voter restriction in right before an election where we're kicking your ass. Oh, what are you going to do? You're going to shut down the government? The Republicans are going to shut down the government before an election. How is that going to help you in Congress, the House, and the Senate?
Seems like a real weird choice to make.
Right. But he's getting pressure from Trump on it. It might make Harris look a little bad to people that don't know the difference, but for all the down ballot races, those guys are all going to be running around going, hey, my opponent just shut down the government.
Right.
So they really put him in a bind. So of course he's trying to push this. The Democrats are just like, no, we're not going with this. And there are Republicans that are sitting there going, no, we're not going to go for this either. I'm running for re-election. I'm not voting for this shit. So he doesn't have the votes. They were trying to do a vote this morning. This is Wednesday the 11th, September 11th. They tried to do it this morning. Mike Johnson called the vote and stopped it before it happened because he knows he doesn't have the votes. Because even Republicans don't want to vote for this thing. So right now, until they come up with something, they might shut down the government on October 1st. They got, 20 days? To figure this shit out?
I mean, if I'm the Democrats, I'm just sitting there and letting the Republicans just
let them shoot themselves in the foot.
Implode.
Yeah.
Right.
Let them hang themselves. So that's what's going on with that. We'll see how it plays out, but I think they're pretty much toast. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I want to do this one story to wrap up. We had to follow up. So we covered Lauren.
And because this is my favorite person, and you just had to do this for me. This is my gift, right?
Had to do it, yeah. So Lauren Boebert, running for re-election in Colorado, got called out to a debate by her challenger, a woman named Tricia Calvarese. I finally got her name right. She called her out. She did a Beetlejuice joke commercial that was really funny that we covered last time. Well, they actually did debate. It did not go well for Lauren as expected. So, watch a little.
Well, the countdown is well underway for Election Day, and the two candidates hoping to win the seat for Colorado's 4th congressional district debated today for the first time.
Denver 7's Brandon Richards shows the issues Lauren Boebert and Tricia Calvary's focused on.
Well, we had to come to this private golf club in Littleton to catch Congresswoman Lauren Boebert and her Democratic challenger Tricia Calvary's in their first and what could be their only debate before November's election.
So, I want to cover this real quick. Why are we doing a debate at a private golf course? Because that's where Lauren Boebert agreed to do it. I don't know if she had to debate or what the deal was. She did not want to do a televised debate. So they did it at a private golf course where you had to pay to get in. Right?
So, okay, let's stop and think. And I'm not a politician, but I feel like all that would do when it came out that I was doing that is make me sound like I'm super elitist and classist and this and that. You know what I mean? Like, gonna alienate people.
No, but that was the thing. She didn't want it televised. There was some cameras there and stuff. Calvary's got a lot of footage for her campaign. She put it on Twitter, clips of the debate, and that went viral. So it all backfired on Lauren. Like, just like you kind of just said. I mean, it looks bad, and then it backfired because then people want to see it. It was the whole. It's the whole joke with the movie Citizen Kane, and it was about the big media mogul, and he talked all the movie theaters into like don't show it, and so they could only show it in these little backwater movie theaters. And when they asked Orson Welles, well, what do you want to do? Nobody's going to see it. Orson Welles said, market it as the movie they don't want you to see. And then everybody went and saw it because, yeah, why is this not at the normal theater? Right? Now I got to see it.
Why? What's wrong with it? I have to figure that out, you know?
That's kind of what Calvary sort of did here, was the debate Boebert doesn't want you to see. And she put it on Twitter, and then it got viral. So, just a little bit of...
Lewis County Economic Development Corporation.
It's weird. It's
not
a weird...
just throw money at a problem and have it go away.
Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, the Republican nominee for CD4, says spending is out of control in Washington. She touted her record voting against bills she says would have led to more spending.
The best thing that lawmakers in Washington D.C. can do is stop spending
What?
more money.
I know. I'm against spending, but we're doing it at a private country club.
I'm against spending as I'm at a private country club, golf course, place that only people with money to spend can come to. Like,
right.
How tone deaf are we?
Standing in front of multi-$1,000 paintings. I mean, come on.
Tricia Calvary's, the Democratic nominee, says Boebert's votes against bills like the Inflation Reduction Act are doing more harm than good.
The Inflation Reduction Act has a ton of potential to bring excellent, high-paid, quality jobs to our district. We just need somebody, again, who's willing to roll up their sleeves and actually make some progress happen.
Calvary's also went after Boebert's vote against the PACT Act, which expanded health care benefits for veterans.
I think if you're going to be America first, you can't put veterans last.
And when it comes to our veterans, I have returned hundreds of millions of dollars to my constituents, which include veterans who have been strangled by red tape and bureaucracy.
Calvary's told us she wants another debate, televised.
This was the beginning of what I think is a job interview for all of our constituents. So I am calling on her to debate on TV at least twice.
Apparently she's feeling that she didn't do very well if she's already looking for the second.
For now, this 45...
Not really what happened. So, we'll jump into a little, because I watched the whole debate. It was really good. Calvary's was pretty awesome. She kind of crushed it. But she covered a couple things. What she kind of opened with was she's from the district. She was born and raised there. And then she moved away, and she came back because her elderly parents both have cancer, or had cancer. Her mother's still alive. Her father died recently. So she came back.
Moved back home.
What was that? I didn't hear you.
I said, so she moved back home.
Right, to take care of her parents. So already, much better person than Lauren Boebert ever was, because Lauren Boebert's basically abandoned her only son, who's in trial now, and he's looking at doing serious prison time. So already established that more of a family person, more attached to the district. And Lauren Boebert's a carpetbagger coming in from another district because she knows she can't win there. Right?
Right.
So let's set that bar right away. Then she did cover a lot about healthcare, which is, well, wait a minute. You voted not to lower the prices on drugs with the Biden administration. And that would have affected, my parents. And my father lived a whole nother 4 years because he had health care that would allow him to get those drugs, but you voted to make those more expensive so they'd be out of reach. So people now, she's like, I got 4 years with my dad because of that, and you voted against that. And you voted against the PACT Act to expand health care for veterans. She's voted against veterans health care a couple times.
And what did Lauren Boebert seem to have to say about all of that?
She was on the back foot the whole time trying to make excuses. So let's look at this was the article. Lauren Boebert crashes and burns during first debate stage appearance. So they wrote, Tricia Calvary's mopped the floor with Lauren Boebert during their first and only debate. Of course they did. Representative Lauren Boebert did not have a good debate with her Democratic opponent, Tricia Calvary's. Calvary's has video to prove it. Calvary's posted a statement on X after the debate, which was held Tuesday afternoon in Littleton, Colorado, calling out Boebert for disrespecting veterans, opposing lower prices for prescription drugs, and skipping critical votes. She replied to the post with videos from the debate that quickly went viral and caused Boebert's name to trend on social media. on X, at least. At the debate, Calvary's mentioned her father, who had cancer, and said that life-saving medication covered by his union benefits allowed her to spend 4 extra years with him. Calvary's pointed out that Boebert voted against allowing Medicare to negotiate lower prescription drug costs, putting high-cost medicines out of reach for millions. Calvary's also attacked Boebert for voting against the PACT Act, which expanded benefits and health services to military veterans who were exposed to toxic substances, particularly from burn pits during their service. She said, you voted for care for veterans exposed to cancer-causing toxins and burn pits during war. So we definitely have different priorities because I believe we should take care of our veterans always. Boebert tried to justify her vote by saying that she couldn't suggest amendments for the bill and was unwilling to spend $1 billion forever because we couldn't get a couple of pieces of language right in the legislation. She didn't make a whole lot of sense. Calvary's fired back by calling out Boebert's votes to cut funding to the Department of Veterans Affairs, which Boebert weekly tried to claim were due to the VA's unresponsiveness. She blamed the VA for cutting the VA. It was the only one scheduled between the two candidates. It was held at a country club with an entry fee and not televised. Calvary's told reporters after the debate concluded that there should be 2 more televised debates, to which Boebert responded that Calvary's had her debate today. So who's afraid to debate again, Lauren? So she got her ass
And then she
handed to
said, I debate Democrats on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It's my job. Well, if it's your job, show up and debate this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Do your job. Because that was
Right.
kind of the
They're
joke.
paying you for.
Yeah, that was kind of the joke of the debate was you're not doing your job. And then she's saying that's my job, but I'm not going to do it. So yeah. Yeah. Yep. But that's a great line too. I'd use that in an attack ad. I debate the Democrats every day. It's my job. Well, then debate me on TV. Let's do it.
Then she declines an invitation to debate me.
Because she lost the first one.
Which she was only willing to do if it was at a really expensive country club that many people cannot afford to get into.
Right. Where she thought no one would see it. And it backfired because Calvary's, and the reason that video is so bad and the vocals are so bad is some of that which she put online was her staff filming it on their phones. Oh yeah, that's right. People have those now. Oops. I can't believe Lauren Boebert forgot that.
And that people can just go live.
Oh my gosh. But you know she had to poop her pants because there's a reporter in Colorado, I forget which channel he's on, but he's gone after Boebert quite a bit, especially because she's taken credit for a lot of bills that she voted against. Like, she's taken credit for a lot of money that's coming to Colorado from the Inflation Reduction Act. She took credit for it, showed up to, like, the dedications and stuff to take credit for it. And the guy's like, yeah, but you voted against this. So why are you showing up like you did something?
Wow.
So you know she had to poop her pants when that guy was sitting in the front row. Because you know he's going to report on it later on local television. And he is one of the most watched local news shows in Colorado. So, honestly, not a lot of polls right now going on. Last polls from 538 were back in May. And Calvarese was trailing by 10 points. But that's also when Calvarese was in the primary. And she was losing to McCorkle. So she was 10 points behind then. Last poll I saw was a local poll. It wasn't real scientific or anything, but it was, you know, it was what it was. They had Calvarese only down by 4 and within the margin of error.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be that Boebert loses this after carpetbagging and everything. Because Calvarese just got a ton of money for advertising. It was like several $100,000 for advertising. Because there are people out there like Lacey that have a lot of money. Well, Lacey doesn't have that much money, but that she can give $400,000. Yeah, but there are people out there that are like Lacey and are big fans of Boebert for the wrong reasons. And some of those people have a lot of money, and they've given a lot of it to Tricia to go smack her around.
Go and mop the floor with her.
Oh, plus I do like the visual of Lauren's in sort of a sundress thing for the debate. Calvarese is in a suit, and she's a tall blonde, and she looks like she's there for business. Lauren looks like she's going to a cocktail party.
At a country club.
Yep. What, Trisha? We're gonna debate? I thought we were just gonna have mimosas and talk about assaulting our ex-husbands.
Wait, you haven't assaulted your ex-husband? Girl, let me tell you.
And then the state of Colorado said I only have 2 points left on my driver's license.
Oh, man.
And I said, do you know who I am? They said, yes, Lauren, we know. We've been to your house many times.
And we know where you live, too. We've been there.
Yeah. The police get called there fairly frequently. So. Oh, man. So, hopefully, fingers crossed. We'll see. I'd like to see Tricia Calvarese beat her. I like Calvarese. I think she's sharp. I think she'd be good. I think she'd be fun in Congress, too. She is a bit of a smartass. But she didn't do any of that at the debate. She was very serious the whole time. She basically hammered her home.
At least she knows when to be serious, so that's good.
Yeah. Well, she made it personal. So, and Lauren was on the back foot the whole time. So, good stuff. So, 2 good debates this week, and we'll see what happens. You know, it's not in the bag yet, but it's looking good. So, keep your fingers crossed, everybody. Register to vote. Vote early. That's our show. Where can everybody catch you, Lacey?
All right. As always, you can catch me at mysensewithsense.com. You can find information about my courses, workshops, and articles that I've written if you have questions about any of those items, or you want to send us some clips. Could be Boebert, could be Trump, could be a surprise clip.
Could be.
We'll take whatever you like, and we'll also take you inviting yourself onto our show. If you want to do that, how would you go about it, Lincoln?
Yeah, just email us at gossipfinancead@outlook.com. It's down below. If you want to come to the show and there's something you want to discuss, we can arrange a time to do that. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll catch you next time.